Welcome back to Backwoods Horror Stories. The story you're about to hear was sent to us by a listener, and it's one of the wildest I've ever heard. If you have a story of your own to share, email Brian at paranormalworldproductions.com. You can also leave us a voicemail by clicking the button right here in the show notes. Now, let's get into the amazing story of a man shooting a Sasquatch to protect his family.
I'm writing in to share my encounter. I know that nobody's going to believe me, but I really don't give a damn. This happened. I was there. End of story. I don't care about fame or fortune. I just want myself, my home, and my family left alone. There's nothing I wouldn't do to protect my own, as you'll soon find out. Let this be a warning to anybody that might get the stupid idea to come looking for these big stinky-ass things on my property. My name is Rich, and I live on almost 40 acres in northwest Tennessee. I've hunted since I was big enough to hold a gun. My father left me when I was little, and I never met him. My uncle's the one that taught me all I know about hunting and the woods, about life, really. He also taught me the value of family and to protect it, along with your property, at any cost. I've been married for about 12 years now, and my wife and I have 2 little girls. Every time I look at them, I wonder how in the hell my dad did what he did, because you couldn't keep me from my little girls. I honestly would die for all 3 of them, the wife included. Unfortunately, neither one of my girls was very tomboyish. They were their mama through and through. That's all right by me, but honestly, I was looking forward to teaching one of my kids to hunt. Maybe one of them will show some interest one day. It just hasn't happened yet. I say all that to say, I'm the only one in my family that's capable of protecting us. We live so far out that if we ever needed to call the police, there's no telling how long it would take them to get here. We've never needed them before, and hopefully never will. The police aren't really who you need to call for help with these kind of things anyway. I feel like I'm rambling, so I'll get to the damn point. I grew up with my uncle telling me stories about the wild men in the woods. Nowadays, people call them Bigfoot or Sasquatch. My uncle claimed that he had one take a deer from him one time. He said he shot the deer, tracked it, only to see one of these things pick it up like a loaf of bread and walk off with it. He said he just stood there like a dummy and couldn't even move. He talked about hearing them several times as well. He told me about this awful smell that would sometimes just come out of nowhere and then just go away. Sometimes it would be just for a few seconds, and other times it would stay around for hours. I'll be honest, I've smelled that foul smell a time or two, and I've heard what sounded like somebody taking a wooden bat and smacking it against a tree. I knew that these were signs of these things, but my thinking was always, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. It seemed like a good arrangement until they went and screwed it all up. I told you about my little girls. One is 9 and the youngest just turned 6, so this happened about a year ago, so they were 8 and 5 at the time. I'm not going to share their names, but for this email, we can call them S and J, with J being the youngest. One morning at breakfast, Jay asked me who the funny-looking man was that looks through her window at night. This caught me off guard. I knew that kids can have wild imaginations, but she's never said anything like that before, and it just wasn't like her to make up stories. I asked her what the man looks like. She said it's hard to tell because it's dark, but he has red hair all over him, even on his shoulders. That's all she could see. It's important to tell you, the bottom of her window is just under 7 feet off the ground. She said she could see his face and shoulders. I'm guessing that would make this dude around 7 foot. I'm not going to lie, this bothered me. I told her the next time he comes to the window, you come and wake me up. I don't care what time it is. Well, a couple of nights go by and there's nothing. But then on the 4th night, I'm woken up by this little voice saying, "Daddy, that man's back at the window." It took me a second to understand, having just woke up from a deep sleep. But I nudged my wife awake and I grabbed Jay and put her back into bed with her mama. I got up and got dressed real quick and grabbed my 12 gauge and I snuck out the front door as quietly as I could. Her room is on the rear of the house, so I wanted to go around the front so I could sneak around and surprise whoever or whatever was at her window. But nothing was there, though. I checked the entire area under the window for any disturbances. We have flowers with mulch all around our house. The area under both of my daughter's windows was all messed up, like someone had been standing there, just moving back and forth. I knew I had trouble on my hands. I put up trail cameras all around the house and put up some floodlights. That seemed to do the trick because all the activity seemed to stop. I thought I'd solved the problem. I was wrong. Man, was I ever wrong. A couple of months went by, and I'd almost forgotten about the whole thing until one day my wife said, "I hear S screaming bloody murder." It was around 7 p.m., and the sun was just starting to go down, but it was still bright enough outside that you could see. The wife and I took off running out the door. We see S running towards us, but we didn't see Jay right away. We looked past S and saw Jay laying on the ground, not moving. I took off to get her, scared to death of what I was going to see when I got there. But she wasn't hurt at all, just dirty. She looked to be in shock, though. Her eyes were open wide, but she wasn't talking. I scooped her up and took her back to the house. My wife already had S on the porch, and we all went in. Jay still wasn't talking. S was crying hysterically. She said the red gorilla tried to take Jay. As you can imagine, my wife and I were like, what the fuck is she talking about? What red gorilla? She just kept saying it was huge and red. Jay finally started to come around, and she said he's the one that watches me sleep. We finally got the story from the two of them, and we think that this thing came to take Jay, and when S started screaming, it scared this thing away. It just ran off. I also knew that next time we might not be so lucky. I know this is a long story, so I'll try to speed it up a bit. I knew something had to be done. That night I read as much as I could about Bigfoot and their believed tendencies. I'm a hunter, so I already had the hunting equipment that I believe I'd need, so my wife and I came up with a plan. I was going to go out in the woods in the direction that this thing ran. I showered with my non-scented hunting soap and shampoo, and I put on my ghillie suit. I was going to be out there early the next morning. Then my wife was going to take the girls out to play around dusk that evening, about the same time the incident took place. By that time, I'll have been sitting in the same spot for about 10 hours or so hopefully I could surprise this thing when it came through. I had a Remington 1187 Magnum with double-aught buckshot. I took the plug out so I could get as many rounds in as this thing would hold. I'm definitely glad I did. When I heard my girls playing, I knew it was game time. I started wondering if I was stupid for even trying this. But this thing messed with my family, and where I'm from, family's off limits. This thing was going to die. I was really surprised at how quickly I heard something off to my left when I heard the girls playing. It was almost like this guy knew that they would be there. I got my first look at this thing not long after I smelled it. Everything I had read and heard talked about was how smart these things are and how it's impossible to track one. I guess those people are either dumbasses or this guy was so fixated on my girls that he was taking risks that he normally wouldn't. I can confidently say it was a male. That bastard had an erection. That honestly pissed me off more than anything. It took all I had to wait for this thing to get close enough for me, but I swear to God, he would have stepped right on me if I'd have let him keep coming. He was headed straight for me. I was propped up against a tree sitting on my ass. He got less than 5 feet from me, and he was moving incredibly slow. I figured if I couldn't hit him from 5 feet, I deserved whatever he did to me. I took a deep breath, raised my shotgun to my shoulder, and pulled the trigger. I wish I could show you the look on his face when I first made the move to raise my gun. It was the perfect oh shit face. He just froze, and I fired. I hit him in the face, and if I had to guess, I'd say around the nose and mouth area. I saw this red mist just explode from behind his head. After I hit him, he just crumpled, and on his way down, I put one more in his chest. He hit the ground and never moved again. I just sat there dazed, and I couldn't believe what happened. I snapped out of it when I heard my girls screaming. I thought, oh shit, not another one. I jumped up and ran back to the house. Turns out it was just the shots that scared them. I was awful close after all. I made sure they were all right, and then I had to figure out what to do next. I mean, there's a damn dead Bigfoot practically in my backyard. Before I knew it, it was already dark. I decided that first night that I'd go out there and bury it. Like I said, I don't want any attention from this. The damnedest thing happened, though. I went out there with a shovel and a pickaxe the next morning, and I swear he wasn't there. There was no blood on the ground, but there was a mess made all over the area. But no dead Bigfoot. I honestly think some of the others came and took his body away. This freaked me out more than anything. Then it hit me. There's no way I could protect us from all of these things. We made the decision to sell the house. That very day, we packed up some clothes and went to stay with my wife's parents. I no longer felt safe there. I started to wish that we had done that from the very beginning instead of me killing one. But honestly, I feel like something was wrong with that one. That if he didn't get my daughter, he would eventually get someone else's. I questioned everything about that day. There's a lot more about this I could add, but I've been typing for way too long as it is. That's the meat and potatoes of it. As I said, I don't care one bit if you call me a liar. We were there. We know what happened. My girls are tough, and I feel like if they need to talk to somebody about this in the future, we'll definitely do that for them. Hell, I kind of feel like I need to talk to somebody because this whole thing really messed me up. But who do you talk to, though? Well, there you have it. There's my story. Do with it what you will.